Good evening, Estragon Lice. I understand that we've just gone live with our first guest of this evening's show. It's our final show of Series 1 this evening. We will be coming back with a Christmas special. So before we start and bring the guest on, I'd just like to know that who is watching. Give us a comment in the box on the right-hand side where you're watching from. And then another thing, if you can share this onto your social media, then obviously we'll be getting the viewers up to the level that we should be getting up. We're over about 300,000 viewers. So if you can let me know that you're there before we start, and I'll bring on our guest, who is obviously a fantastic ex-All Black Cardiff Blues player. I'll tell you a little about our guest and where he's based, because he's in his actual workplace at the moment. And I'd just like to let me know who's out there watching us for Gun Lice. Obviously, I know there's people in Spain and France tuning in. We've got people that are actually in the rugby club. Bethan, you shouldn't be in the rugby club. You should be outside the club, social distancing. But it's good to see you back in the club, and thanks for supporting us. So as I said, tonight's guest is a powerful number 8, Xavier Rush. Xavier is actually based at the moment in his headquarters, which we'll talk about for his obviously post-rugby. He's set up a new business, which is very successful. And as I start, so where are you at the moment then, Xavier? And welcome to Estragon Lice.
Yeah, Gareth, thank you for the welcome. I'm in Cardiff City Centre. We're at Headquarters Hair Transplants, which is a business I've founded and launched since retiring from rugby. I obviously I looked a little bit like you, Gareth, a few years ago. I had a little bit of work done. Was very pleased with the initial results, and have had a second procedure here at Headquarters Hair Transplants. And yeah, we're up and running. It's going well. It's great to be able to give men back their confidence. Obviously, losing the hair affects men in different ways. So we're getting a lot of positive results, a lot of positive feedback, and it's a really enjoyable industry to be in.
Great. So obviously, firstly, I'd like to thank Xavier for giving up his Saturday evening. He's been busy doing this week. I think it's his 6th hair transplant. I am going to speak to him off screen about what we could do for me, because as we know, Tom Shanklin and myself pointed out when we were on it that it was like a Slim and World photo. Tom was there and I was there. And I think
I could retire on doing Tom's hair transplant. That would be enough for us. Brilliant. If we could get Tom hair back, that'd be enough for us.
Brilliant. So as I said, I'd just like to introduce Xavier properly. I remember him coming to Cardiff Blues. I remember him playing for the All Blacks. I think it was 8 caps for the All Blacks. Came into Welsh rugby, in my opinion, as one of the best exports, obviously, so he imports into regional rugby. Powerful number 8 with the Blues. And as I said, before we start, I'd just like to see, how has it been for you this lockdown? Obviously, we're going through different times.
It's been an unusual time. It's been an unusual time for everybody. Obviously, end of March, it was quite we all didn't quite know what to expect. As a business owner, it was quite a worrying time. No one quite knew what was going to happen. In fairness, say what you want about how the government's handled COVID. They did actually look after businesses fairly well with being able to still pay workers while we're on lockdown and stuff. So that was obviously a scary time. Things are starting to return to a little bit of normality. The other thing I do is construction. I develop properties. Right. We're just about to finish a church development in Abergavenny, in the heart of Abergavenny. It's a beautiful 6 townhouse conversion. They're about to go on sale. So that's the other side of the coin that I'm involved with. Always have been. I was a carpenter when I left school. Through my whole rugby career, I always had a property or a development on the go. Obviously with rugby, you never knew when it was going to end or when you were going to get dropped or whatever. So it was always good just to have a bit of a backstop in your pocket.
Great. It's interesting you say it. So we had Sean Fitzpatrick on last week talking about being a builder. I know you've done a trade. Zinzan Brooks on afterwards, and obviously he was a trade. So it's interesting, you guys, what you've done. So in terms of your rugby career, how did it work out for you in terms of starting? Did you start as a youngster and work your way through, or what was your journey?
So I started off when I was 5.
Right.
Like any New Zealand kid, they get taken down to the local rugby club. You're playing barefoot in New Zealand on a frosty Saturday morning. And in fairness, I loved it. I loved it from day one. As time goes on, you play in school, and first 15 rugby in school in New Zealand. Actually, Sean Fitzpatrick and myself, we went to the same school. We went to Sacred Heart College. We're both good Catholic boys, so we went to Sacred Heart College in Auckland. And it's school, first 15 rugby is big. You get 3,000-4,000 people watching a first 15 rugby match in Auckland or other parts of New Zealand. And as an old boy, you always love going back down and watching how the teams go in. Those sort of local rivalries still exist. Then from school rugby, I went in and I started playing provincial rugby fairly early on. I think I was 19 when I had my first cap for Auckland Blues. So I was just out of school. And look, I mean that was a really daunting time. I mean I was 19. I think the next person, it was a really established Auckland team. The next person or the next age group up from me, I think was about 23, 24. So there's quite a big gap between me and the next player in terms of age, age difference. Plus also, I think every single member of that Auckland Blues team had played for the All Blacks. So, you had guys like Sean Fitzpatrick who would have been about 33, 34. So I was I 5 or 6 when I was watching Sean play rugby. I remember watching the '87 World Cup. I was about 6 years of age. Next thing, you're in this team and playing with them. It was such an established team and such a successful team. It was a big leap from playing first 15 rugby, a little bit of club rugby, and then going into that kind of environment. I still remember the first. Graham Henry rang me up. It was 1997. I was 2 years out of school, and he asked me what I was doing on. He said, "Is that you, Xavier?" I said, "Yes." He said, "It's Graham Henry here." I didn't know if it was or if it wasn't, or someone was having me on. But I thought I'd better play along. And I remember saying to me, "Xavier, what are you doing on Friday?" I said, "Well, I'm going to work." He said, "How would you like to come away with the Auckland Blues on a tour to the UK, France, and then South Africa for the first two Super Rugby matches?" I was 19. I was like, "Yeah, that'd be nice." He said, "Well, make sure you turn up to Clive Green gym, and you mark it tomorrow morning 7 a.m." And that was the start of it. That was the start. I was in a room full of All Blacks, completely out of my depth, and I mean completely out of my depth. But you get chucked in the deep end, and you got to wing it a bit, and you either swim or you sink.
Good. So then, obviously, you part of the Auckland team. Then, how far after was it you made your All Blacks? I know you had 8 caps for the All Blacks, but
I was 21 when I had my first cap against Australia. The All Blacks had it wasn't the most successful period. They'd lost their previous 4 games, and I mean the All Blacks, they hardly ever lose two games on the bounce, So they lost the previous 4 games. I came in the 5th game. We're playing in Sydney, Australia. We ended up losing that game. So it was 5 losses in a row. The coaches kind of got swapped, and it took me about 5 years in to get my second cap. And I played a bit more of a succession of games from about 25 onwards.
So what was it like?
There was a big gap between my first and second test. It was rather a big gap, yeah.
Yeah. So what was it like for you as a New Zealander to, I know Sean Fitzpatrick mentioned last week about what it means to be an All Black, but what did it mean to you to be, representing?
Well, it is your dream. It's, as a youngster, I mean, as a youngster, I remember I watched the All Blacks. I wanted to be an All Black. And then when you finally get there, it's again. I mean, I felt better when I heard Jonah Lomu speak one day, and I remember him being on stage, and he said, "Man, I was so scared when I had my first test. I was terrified." I thought, "Wow, that made me feel a lot better," because I was exactly the same. There's so much history, and there's so much success. You don't want to let anybody down. And as youngsters, I mean, Jonah I think he was 19, just out of school. Yeah. I was 20, 21. It's not like you've had 5 or 6 years of professional rugby and you're kind of well established. You're still only new. You're new into that. You're new into that kind of career, and you probably feel a little bit out of your depth early on, and you probably are. And you can't. There's no gadgets for experience. You get experience from playing. So yeah, it was there's a fair bit of pressure, and you wanted to do well.
Great. I remember then the impact you had at Cardiff Arms Park for Cardiff. What was the lure of? You're still settled in Wales. I said I should tell the new viewers you're running a very successful hair transplant business where you are now. But what was the? You've obviously stayed in Cardiff. What was the attraction? Coming into Wales. And obviously,
I think it was the people. So I met a few coaches in England. The Auckland Blues were playing in South Africa, so a couple of coaches flew down to meet with me and try and get me to play for different English clubs. I remember one head of rugby came down, and he was quite a big, gruff kind of a bloke, and we went for coffee in a coffee shop in South Africa, and the first thing he said to me was, I like my forwards. They've got to have a lot of mongrel. They've got to be this, and that. I won't use the words he used.
right, yeah.
But you can imagine, we're just having a cup of coffee. This is our first cup of coffee. And I'm thinking to myself, in the back of my mind, I can just imagine what this guy's trainings are going to be like. We're going to be knocking 7 bells out of each other. And the next week, I met Bob Norster in Pretoria. Yeah. And big Bobby Norster, I still remember a picture of him kind of walking across the entrance at the hotel we're staying at, like John Cleese, with those big, lovely strides of his. And he was, "Hiya, Zav. Listen, Zav, come and meet the boys. This is Gareth Edwards. This is David. This is Dai Young, 3 times British Lion. Zav, listen, we'd love you to come and play for Cardiff. Have you got a girlfriend? We can get you a girlfriend." This was Bobby's. I just thought, I like the people, and I thought I can laugh, I can enjoy myself with these people, and there's not and that's exactly how it's been. I've enjoyed it. We've had highs, we've had lows, but through the process, we've enjoyed it. We've laughed, and it's kept us coming back for more. When you don't enjoy your rugby, it's a tough, brutal game, and I've got to enjoy what I'm doing.
Fantastic. So how does it compare, in New Zealand to Wales? Is there that same passion for rugby? Is it pretty similar, or
Yeah, the game itself. The biggest difference is in New Zealand, it's played at a higher speed.
Yeah.
It's played fast, very fast. That's the biggest difference. Whereas in the UK, it's a bit more combative. There's more collisions. It hasn't got the same pace, but there's a lot of collisions. But the pace is improving. It is improving. But the biggest difference was collision. So it really suited me. When I was 28, 29, I was getting a bit older in New Zealand. There was better, younger talent coming through, and I could see it. I could feel it. When I moved to Cardiff, the pace was no problem. Plus the physical side of it really suited me.
Great. So I've been watching you on social media, and obviously last week you made a very good tweet, and I'd like to discuss that with you about Bowden Barrett, and what did you mean about that tweet, and obviously what's happening out in with Bowden Barrett at the moment. It's great. It got a lot of interest in it.
I was really annoyed they did it for the World Cup, right? Now, obviously, from watching the All Blacks, from watching the Lions, from watching the World Cup and other matches and the Tri-Nations, they haven't had a great period from the Lions to into the Tri-Nations and into the World Cup. It hasn't been a great period, and I think the biggest issue has been to be honest, I think our biggest issue has been our defence. I think our defence is really archaic. When I look at all the teams that have improved from World Cups, I look at Wales, I look at South Africa, I look at Ireland, I look at England. They're all using a rugby league style defence,
right?
And it's a lot squarer. It hits square, whereas our and it's up fast. Whereas our defence is it's archaic. It's very lateral. It's very slow. Our collisions aren't dominant, and we don't slow the speed of ruck, whereas opposition do that to us. So I think that was the first reason why Barrett got moved from. I don't know this. This is just my opinion, by the way.
No, it's great. Hey, that's what we want. We
Yeah.
want that.
That's where I feel Barrett got moved from 10 to 15 with the All Blacks. Now, I mean, you could see it in the games. They weren't handling the line speed. They hadn't been handling line speed for quite a while. So he got moved to 15, and then, and it didn't work. It didn't work with him at 15 because the next 10 still couldn't really handle the line speed. I remember watching the South African game, which was the first game of the World Cup. Other than about a 10-minute period, we were getting battered for 70 minutes of the game. We scored three tries in and around half time and won the game. So then the World Cup's finished. It hasn't gone well for us. We've gone back down to New Zealand, and they've kept playing him at 15 on the back of this. So now, obviously, the All Black selectors have got a big say in where Barrett plays, and now he's at 15. He's had so much success at 10, he's had international success at 10. His brother's a great 15. We've got 15s everywhere. We haven't got great 10s. So I just, most 10s I know, now I don't know Bowden Barrett, but most 10s I know want to play 10. It's a big demotion to go and play 15. It means you haven't quite cut it at 10. They'll kind of spin a nice story and say, listen, we want you to play off the second, third phase and give you a bit more space and use your talents. But deep down, most 10s I know, they want to be 10. They want to be controlling the game, running the game, in charge of the game. Yeah. And I don't know. I compare it to the Patchell situation. Very similar to the Patchell situation in Wales. I compare it to my career. They tried to make me a hooker when I was about, sort of 23, 24. They tried to convert me to hooker. I didn't want to be a hooker. I had no interest in being a hooker. I wouldn't have enjoyed my game, my rugby being a hooker. So I flatly said no. I said, if I'm not good enough to make it at number 8, then I'm not good enough to make it at number 8, But I don't want to be a hooker. So if your heart's not in it, it's again, it goes back to I can't enjoy it if I'm going to be a hooker. I don't want to be a hooker. It doesn't fill me full of want for the game, So, I've seen it when they've tried to put, 10s to 15, and they start to not enjoy their rugby. Now, again, so this is just my opinion. I can just, I just think he's had so much success at 10 to now start saying, oh, he's actually a 15, I think is, if it's affecting how he's enjoying his rugby, then it's unfair on the player. I know, from watching Patchell, and I don't think he enjoyed his rugby as a 15. He wants to be a number 10. He wants to try and make it a number 10. And I compare those two, a lot. And the thing is, this is what I find also, just from my experience in rugby. So there'll be 10s 1 week, 15s the other week, back to 10 1 week, this kind of thing. It's so hard for number 10s. Number 10s have got so many pictures in front of them, so many different images coming at them. It takes them 3, 4, 5, 6, 10 games to kind of start reading the play, reading the opposition, getting fluent again at 10. It's really hard to go from 15 1 week to 10 1 week, back to 15. They need a run of games. They need to feel secure. They need to, they need to feel, they need that time in the chair. They need that time in the chair. So for me, I think it's come off I think he's been put into 15 because we haven't handled and played well into opposition's line speed. I think it's come from an international, from the international game, and now it's come into the, he's now not seen as a number 10 in the club game, where he's played like almost, he's played about 8 seasons for the Hurricanes at 10 really successfully. So I just think it's unfair on the player.
Yeah, okay, that's really good insight. And you spoke earlier about the in Australia, New Zealand, that the game is more open. One question that's coming from a regular viewer, Julian Bynum, he said, Xavier, what rules would you implement really to open the game up a bit to give the players an opportunity to show their skills? Because you were talking about collisions earlier. Is there a way that we could look to open up the game?
I don't know. Conditions come into it a little bit. Conditions come into it a little bit. Skill sets come into it a little bit. Maybe the way we train comes into it a little bit. I think you've got to just have a bit of it's the want as well. The want, skill levels. In terms of rules, I can't think of any. There's. I don't want to get into much of a rule debate because the game's so complicated these days, and red cards. It's quite complicated to watch sometimes, and there's no forgiveness now for players. There's no empathy for players. It's gone quite. The empathy's gone for players. If you make a foul, you're gone. You can cost your team. You could. And there's some blatant fouls, like the French guy at the World Cup. That was a red card all day. But there's other ones which are quite serious for the crime done.
Yeah. Okay, that's great. And just to let you know, one of our club players was a big fly half. Ricky Williams actually helped us win at the Millennium Stadium as our club. He said, "I've never heard a forward speak so much sense." So we like to your opinion on the Barrett debate, and that's fantastic. So, in terms of the future for you, Xavier, because our next guest, Ieuan Evans, is already on, which is great. Because last week a couple of guests couldn't get on, so he's smiling at me in the back office, and I did name my son after him, so it's great that Ieuan's waving at me. I'm not trying to kick you off because I could talk to you all day.
I think you are, Gareth, if I'm honest.
I'm not. I'm lucky to be surrounded. I've got Zinzan.
Your hair transplant just went up.
Right, so let's talk sense now. Ieuan hasn't got much hair either, so there's another customer.
Yeah, definitely.
So I'm going to have a transplant of hair. Is that happening? That's the first thing. And we'll push the fact that Xavier's in headquarters in Cardiff.
Yes.
Anybody needs a transplant, this is the man for you. Look at his hair compared to mine. So he's looking good. In terms of the future then for you, is there any return to rugby, or is that better?
Do you know? I'll be completely honest. When I first retired, I'd given up the last 20, 30 years of weekends away, of freedom. I was too selfish to go straight into coaching. I wanted some time away. I wanted some freedom away from the game. As that's gone on, my love and my interest for the game has started to grow again. You never say never, but I wanted to go away, set myself up business-wise first, and then go back to rugby if the love was still there to go back for it. Not to go back there for the money, but to go back there because I love it. I love it. So that would be the reason why I would go back to it.
Okay, so there's an opportunity you could come and help with us to Gunlights then. You do my hair, and I'll get you.
There's always a possibility.
I can see the headline tomorrow. There's no rush to us to Gunlights. Right, well, I'm going to let you dash off. I'd like to say on behalf of the club, I really appreciate you giving up your time. This is the kind of end of the first series tonight. As I said, we've had some fantastic names on here. We've got 2 All Blacks on tonight, both number 8s. We've got Ieuan Evans on in between. So I'd just like to say on behalf of the Rugby Club in Gunlights, thank you very much. And hopefully I see you in a different light to sort this out for me. Because these eyebrows, I think, there's something there that they could go back a bit. I don't know, but you know. So as I said, thank you very much for giving up your time. And it's been... really good. And if you could just, before you go, give a shout out to, there's a 60th birthday for Gary Jones. They're asking, his family are saying, Gary Jones, you play for the club.
Gazette Jones, have a great 60th. Don't overdo it, my old boy.
All right, that's done. So as I said, I'm going to bring in our next guest. And just like to say thank you very much and take care.
Big hello to Ieuan. Take care, guys. Cheers.
Yeah. Cheers. Bye-bye. Right. We're just going to bring in our next guest, Mr. Ieuan Evans. So let me just bring him in just to check. We are live. Are you there, Ieuan?
I am indeed. Thanks, Zav. And happy birthday to Gary Jones as well. Penboy Hapus.
Brilliant. So that's Kieran Jones, your father's. Let me just get my pen as everybody's wishing. So if anybody's drinking alcohol out there, and this is our last show for the series, let's have a bit of a drink. And I know there's people in the rugby club, there's people in Cwmgrac Rugby Club. So the next man doesn't need much introduction, but I will do it. He is a favourite of mine. I named my son after him, middle name Ieuan. Garin was his first name, so obviously you can tell Garin Ieuan. What a winger, 72 caps for Wales, captain on numerous occasions, 7 British Lions. He was dubbed the Merlin, is that correct? You are dubbed the Merlin by Bill McLaren.
Ieuan Garin would have sounded better, but I'll take a middle name.
Aye. Well, I had Clive Rowland said the same when he found out he wasn't named Top Hat. So, yeah, I didn't think he'd be looking at his father. I didn't think we'd fit into the winger mould. So I thought, let's try and get him in that hooker mould. But
some big wingers around mine.
I know there are. It's changed. So, just before we start, obviously, thank you for coming on. The Astragon Light Show. You would know the Anthony Buchanans, the Vernon Coopers. All the Astragon Lights. We've had Phil Davis on, Rupert Moon, Nigel Davis. So we're following on that nice Llanelli trend. How's this lockdown been for you, Ieuan? It's been a bit different, I know, but how's it been for you?
A bit surreal, but if COVID showed us anything, is the importance of family and community. And rugby clubs like Astrada have been strong in being a strong part of the community and being there for people, and that's really important. More than ever now, with such a period of isolation for so many people, vulnerable people out there as well. Family, community is everything.
No, I agree. So in terms of your career, I know you went to the same school as my father, Queen Elizabeth. He's from a little village called Trelich.
All right, okay.
He's watching in the other room. I'm at his house now. So, he was telling me about, obviously the greats. So how did your career kind of start for you, Ieuan, as a young player and end up the way you've ended up, really?
Well, I started off, there was no sort of junior sections in clubs back then. Back in the mid-70s, I started my first time playing rugby. It was pretty much under 11s, Carmarthen District. Right. Playing in Red Roses down in West Wales, and started from there. I went on to play with in school, and also Carmarthen Quins, which is my club side. My dad coached Carmarthen Quins as well. Coached the Carmarthen Quins youth, and that's my club side. And so we didn't have sort of things like tag rugby back then, and we didn't have junior sections in clubs. They didn't really exist back then. So I started off my first played an awful lot of football in school, and also played an awful lot of football locally. But under 11 Swan District is when I started, and quite a few guys that I played alongside from that age all the way through until I joined Llanelli. So playing for the youth side, playing for the Graham, Queen Elizabeth, which then became, in my 3rd or 4th year, became Queen Elizabeth Marigino. And I was quite fortunate back then. Roy Burgess of Llanelli and Wales and Lions fame was my PE coach and my first team coach when I was captain of the school team.
Great. And then you went on to, was it then you made your, what kind of age would you have made your debut in that famous, Llanelli jersey then?
I was, I had a bit of I was pretty much mirrored the rest of my career. I had a few injuries. When I left school, I went up to university in Salford, managed to dislocate my shoulder on a few occasions. And so it took a while for me to break way into the Llanelli side, the Scarlet side, back then. So it's pretty much 1984 when I first started regular rugby. I missed the year before because I had a couple of shoulder dislocations and broke my leg as well, playing for Carmarthen Quins in a sevens tournament at Llanelli Wanderers. So, so I lost a couple of years, which pretty much mirrored the rest of my career. That I would lose a season or two for one injury or another. But so and then played for Carmarthen Quins, playing West Wales conference, played outside half until they figured out I couldn't kick or pass, so they put me out on the wing. But I played West Wales conference for half a season whilst I was in uni and fighting my way back from injury, and then started training for Llanelli in the off season, and then found my way back in there. And then my first season ended up playing against Australia and beating Australia in 1984 as well, which is a nice start to a career at Llanelli.
So that game against Australia, one of our prizes actually a couple of weeks ago was a picture of you and Rupert Moon. I think you were doing a chest pump.
That was the second one.
Second one. So
we played in 84, and then we played again in 92-93 season. We beat them again. So 84, we first beat them. Well, I first beat them for Llanelli anyway, 1984, and that was against that was a midweek game. That was, but again, a fairly strong Aussie side. But then we did it again then, and that's where the Rupert Moon chesting comes along, which I'm still mortified about to this day. And it wasn't my idea, honest. It was Mooney's idea.
Yeah, well, we gave away a signed photograph. Rupert signed a photograph, and like one of our winners. So we discussed that. What would you say was a standout, game for you in that Llanelli shirt?
Oh, that would be there, because that was that was the pack we took on that day. Well, I say I'm a wing, so I kept well away from the big boys. Fear is a very underrated emotion, Gareth. Let me tell you. When in doubt, run like hell the other direction. But that pack was pretty much the pack that demolished Ireland the week before, and they played us with pretty much the test pack. So it was a fabulous day. It was, I think there was about 13,000 there squeezed in to the stadium. They couldn't hold any more than that. They were hanging off the pylons and stuff and the floodlights. But it was an outstanding day. A really good game of rugby as well. It was a proper game. Unfortunately, we lost to Wales. Then lost to them the following week, which was unfortunate because we fancied our chances, particularly after Scarlets and Swansea beaten them a couple of weeks before as well. But that was a special day. But it's we're a cup nation. We come alive, and Llanelli back then we were dominating the cup. We were winning cup. We expected to go to Cardiff to play in the National Stadium as it was back then every season. And we had a wonderful run. And that season where we beat Australia, we also won the title and the cup. So it was a pretty special season that was. So that season would really rank highly in my overall career, let alone my Llanelli career.
Fantastic. So then, in terms of your Welsh career, obviously, you went on to captain Wales. When was your first cap? What age were you? And who was that game against?
My first cap was against France in '87. Again, I'd lost a couple of seasons. I'd played for Wales A. Wales B was called back then. It wasn't called Wales A. A couple of seasons before, and then I had a couple of shoulder dislocations where I talked about. So I missed a couple of years. So it was '87 when I eventually got capped. My first cap was out in France against a very good French side, and a game we should have won, which would have been a great start to the career. But it was other than the fact I nearly missed my cap ceremony. A few boys had come from Carmarthen, and we were staying in the Concord San Jose, which was a really expensive hotel in the middle. And what tended to happen then is just before you went to the official dinner, we were all in our tuxedos, come off the bus. And it took a while to fight your way from, as it was, it wasn't Stade de France back then, it was Parc de France, which was in the middle of the Bois de Boulogne, a fabulous stadium to play in. I mean, a concrete monstrosity, but what a noise. You ran on a cacophony of noise. You had dogs, cats, chickens, cockerels, bands playing in different corners. It was bedlam. And you ran on the field, and you ran off the field, and you couldn't remember anything that happened for 80 minutes. It was just bedlam. And all I wanted to do, it's the most potent of drugs, it's the most intoxicating, and it's the most invigorating. All I wanted to do when I came off, I want that again. I want to do that again. And then they whisk you on the bus, straight back to the hotel, get changed in your tux, and then you have a cap ceremony. And myself and Kevin Phillips had our first caps on the same day. So they whisked up, and it was Rod Morgan, who was the chairman of selectors back then. Sadly, he's no longer with us, a wonderful man. Rod, and he said, right, everybody back down, cap ceremony, and offered his spade by my tux on. But as I walked off the bus, a couple of the boys from Carmarthen said, "Oh, okay, brilliant, congratulations, we're downstairs in the bar, join us for a quick pint." Oh, bad mistake. Rod Morgan ushered everybody into the team meeting room afterwards for the cap ceremony, and President Des Barnett, I think was president at the time, got up and said, well, the greatest honour a president has during his tenure as president is to present the first cup to our debutants today. Kevin Phillips, round of applause, all the team were there. Well, Kev, Ieuan Evans, tumbleweed, not a movement around.
Oh.
Ieuan Evans, no sign of me. One of the boys said, I think he's downstairs in the bar with the commanding boys. Rod Morgan marched down and practically marched me back up the stairs by my ear and marched me back in and said, Ieuan, and before I walked in, don't you ever do that again. So I walked in really embarrassed and said, sorry, apology to everybody. So I nearly missed my cap ceremony. So it was my first cap, nearly my last cap.
Oof. That's interesting, obviously. And I remember, I would like to talk about a game, that, where you were missing from Mr. Underwood and then you came flying past. One thing, I was at the stadium that day and I remember Emile Lewis kicking the ball through and obviously you coming flying through. What was that? There was a packed out terrace at the Arms Park.
It was sensational. Probably the best atmosphere I've ever been at a game. We weren't expected to win. If you remember, the BBC ran a brilliant ad campaign, and the lead up to it on TV was because they were the dominant team. They were an outstanding team. They were regularly regarded as some of the best players in their positions in the world at the time. So they were fully expected to give us a good hide-in. And the BBC ran a campaign was an unbeatable beatable campaign. TV campaign, but no, we're underdogs, never beat them. But a beatable at the end really was, and it's quite an emotional sort of pulling at the sort of emotional strings, getting you all pumped up, the public as well. And the stadium was just electric. It was as if you'd gone in there without any, if you used the grey matter, there was no chance of winning.
Yeah.
But something somewhere, it was pulling on those emotional strings. Said, yeah, perhaps we might. And you just walked on the field. You just had that buzz. It was just as if you touching, an electric charge. Boom. And you walked onto that field, and it was just, England dominated as we expected to do. But I think the whole team, players like Emir, Stewart Davis, Richard Webster, just hit anything in a white jersey with or without the ball. It was irrelevant. I remember Ray Gravel gave me a bit of advice first. The late great Ray Gravel said, "Get your first tackle in early, even if it is a little bit late." And there is a logic to it. And on that day, we just hit anything. Even I did from the wing, just hit anything, and we just held out. And the try that I scored was early in the game, and we pretty much held on for the rest of it. So it's for the full part of an hour, we just held back this wave after wave of white jerseys and just battered them. It helped that I think we had a French ref, which probably helped us a little bit. But it was just resolute defense, character, emotion, driven on by the crowd, and that's where the crowd comes to the fore. You feed off them, they feed off you. They understood the effort we were putting in. We were feeding off the energy they're throwing back our way, and it sustained us for an hour, and it was an hour plus of just defending, and it was what a day. They were comfortably the more talented side, the stronger side, but on the day, and that's the beauty of rugby. On the day, it's the beauty of rugby lies in its imperfections. It's on the day anybody can win a game, and we did that, and it was just that kick downfield from Emir. I was just about to turn around and give him a mouthful because I hadn't touched the ball. And it wasn't likely to touch the ball anytime soon. I always had this kick down. He looked up and thinking, and the one thing you do is, I tend to keep things fairly simple. I come from the Forrest Gump school of rugby on the wing, right? I run, and I chased after the kicks constantly. And I looked up and thought, oh, right, okay, I might have a chance here. And all of a sudden, I got a real good chance. Oh, there's no one chasing. I'm on my own. And all of a sudden, there's your realization that I'm going to get you. And it's just, it was just, the noise was just deafening. It was just boom. It pummels the senses. And that's what, sport can do for you. And that's what international sport can do. And that can do playing for your country. It's the, the proudest moment of my rugby career was captaining my country. And when you captain your country on days like this, it just, it leaves in you a wonderful positive. You know, we always get injured in rugby, and you carry things. You know, physios and doctors tell you about scar tissue. Well, this was a positive scar tissue. It's remained with me ever since. You know, you long for days like that.
It's fantastic because we've been doing a lot about positivity, and there's a guy watching. They call him Mr. Morale, but I think we're gonna have some T-shirts done now about positive scar tissue. Quote Ieuan Evans, and we're gonna sell them because we said it. You know, he'll be laughing now on the side there. A lady called Pamela Nation, who has recently been made redundant over in Cumbrac Rugby. We know it's your last night over there. She asked a question and said you just answered it. So Pamela, we didn't miss your question out. I think Ieuan covered the fantastic about that game against England.
Yeah, I was lucky. Take care, Pamela. You take care.
Yeah. Thank you, Ieuan. That's really appreciated. So you mentioned captain in Wales, obviously being the highlight of your career. How many caps into your Welsh career did they make you captain? And obviously, what did that mean to you? You know, I know you're an extremely proud Welshman. You know, but
yeah, it was fairly early and fairly unexpected, to be honest. You know, the wing isn't the easiest place to captain. You need people inside you. But the only team I'd captained prior to Wales was the school.
Right.
That's the only team I'd captained at that point. And so it was when Alan Davis was the coach and Bob Norster was the team manager. And we'd just come back from a very horrific tour of Australia. And Alan Davis became head coach, and they offered me the post. You know, I jumped at it. And you grow into it. You know, it's and leadership takes different forms. You know, not everyone's a great speaker, not everyone's a fierce intellect, not everyone's a physical presence. Everyone brings their own elements, and leadership is about being you, and that's what I try to be. Try to be me, and you do rely on people when you're out wide on the wing. But you just try to inspire people as best you can and be there for them. You know, it's I think that there's two things in terms of leadership for me that are non-negotiable. That's integrity and honesty. You know, those are the two things, and you bring that to it. Everything else is a bonus.
Great. So in terms of the British Lions, you know, let's not forget that.
British and Irish Lions.
British and Irish, sorry.
The Irish person will not be happy. British and Irish Lions.
Sorry, I've been corrected. Especially in this current climate of what's going on in the world, I need to be spot on. So apologies to our Irish viewers. There are some out there. I can see them. I know we've got a few out there. So apologies to our Irish Lions. My first mistake in 22 weeks has been noticed by So in terms of the British and Irish Lions, what did that mean to you in terms of representing that? And you know, you were a legend.
Yeah, I was quite fortunate to go on 3 tours, and it was and they were all different. The best captain I ever played, that I ever played alongside, who were the biggest influence on me, should we put it that way, on the 89 to 93, obviously Gavin Hastings was captain, and Martin Johnson was captain in 97, but Finlay Calder in 89 had a massive effect and influence on me. The way he conducted himself, in terms of what he brought, the presence he brought to his game, but on top of that, the way he conducted himself as well. Brought a huge amount of loyalty from the players alongside him, and fabulous captain, fabulous leader. But that tour in '89 was great fun. It was, it was outstanding. And I remember going into the '89 tour, and a lot of former Lions were criticising the fact that the Lions were actually going to Australia because it wasn't part of the rota. It was South Africa or New Zealand. But '89, that's that Australian side. In '84, if you remember, Australia came over to Wales and all the other home unions and competed the Grand Slam under Alan Jones. Players like David Campese, so were dominant. You had the Ellers playing as well. They really were the benchmark back then. And then in '91, they went on to win the World Cup. So they were a pretty strong side. And that was that's the only Lions tour ever in '89 that lost the first game and went on to win the series. That's about character and the quality of the squad that the midweek side actually dragged us back into a test series. Donald Donuts as they were back then. But it's the Lions lives and dies by the quality and the depth of its squad and the ability to be competitive. You have to be able to play your way in or play your way out of a test team. That's the only way a test a tour can survive. And I loved every minute of it. Captain of my country is probably my proudest moment, my greatest, the greatest, I suppose, in terms of moments in my career. I think Lions, being out there playing a Lions Test series, being part of a Lions Test series, being part of a Lions winning Test series. We did in '97 and '89, and probably my biggest disappointment was not winning a Test series in '93 where we should have.
So, what was your favourite Lions tour then? Obviously, that you went on. What was the favourite?
But it's also my biggest disappointment because we should have won that Test series. But '89 was fun from start to finish. We had a great time. There was a great camaraderie there. It was still old school in terms of many regards of a tour such.
Yeah.
And we were still able to be really close to supporters, journalists alike. You pretty much travelled en masse around the place. We even linked up with other teams that were touring. University teams were touring, club sides were touring, and you ended up staying in the same resorts or the same hotels and so on. So it was a fun tour from start to finish, but it was a hugely demanding tour as well, and a successful tour. You always enjoy the winning tours more than the losing tours, but I'd probably say I played my best rugby in the '93 tour.
Great. So, in terms of the wingers, there's some questions coming. In terms of who would you say the best winger that you've had to play against in terms of head to head?
I'd be quite great wingers I played against. Well, Jonah would have to be there. The most potent attacking weapon ever in the history of the game. Phenomenal. It just not only the size, and everyone talks about the size, but the balance he had for a big man was sensational, and it was very difficult to bring him down because people were he was knocking people over, which he was, but being able to get an arm around him because he used to tilt and have such a strong fend, you just couldn't grab anything, even if you wanted to. I managed to avoid him for long periods of the game, but he was just a potent player. One player I'd have loved to have played against and I didn't get a chance to is Rupeni Faufau Nabuka. Zav would have known him, and he was a phenomenal player. Played for Fiji, but other great players, obviously Campo, John Kerwin. Campo was just a fabulous footballer and a brain, very unrivaled. He'd have a couple of moments now and again, and I was able to capitalize on one of them in the '89 Lions tour. But pretty much, he was in the '91 World Cup, which Australia won in a semi-final against New Zealand in Dublin, which I was out there for. He was just unplayable. He was just out of this world. So he was quite fortunate. Played on that Lions tour in '89. I think we played against each other 6 times. We played against each other. We marked each other 3 times in the tests. Played for the Anzacs. The only time the Lions have played against the Anzac, which was combined Australian-New Zealand side. Also played against New South Wales. So 5 times on that tour we played against each other. And he didn't score. So, But he would have to be there. Obviously, I'd hit lots of battles with people like Rory Underwood. They'd be there or thereabouts.
Great. So then, in terms of a couple of questions, in terms of coaches, you've obviously, which I know you mentioned Captain Finlay Calder, but in terms of coaches, who would you say had the biggest influence on your career as Ieuan Evans?
Well, I'd probably start off by saying Roy Burgess because he was my school coach. When you go back to the importance of anybody's listening who's of that sort of age, those days of playing school and youth, they stay with you. They're still my best mates from Carmarthen are still my best mates from Carmarthen. I've been best man to, I'm godfather to children and vice versa. So it's they become lifelong friends because even though I might have played in front of 80,000 people, when I play in front of 15 people and a dog playing for my school team, it meant the world to me at the time. It meant the world to us at the time, and I still remember those games now. And I still remember those friends because one thing we need in rugby are friends. You can't do it on your own. It is a true team sport because of that. And especially when you're at the bottom of a ruck. Not that I found myself in many rucks, Gareth, I kept away from them. But when you do, you need mates. and you make lifelong mates in rugby. So Roy Burgess, he had a big impact on me in terms of in terms of understanding what it took, and also give me confidence in what I could be capable of doing. He will certainly be there. Obviously, Alan Lewis and Gareth Jenkins when I was in Llanelli. But Alan Davis, who showed a huge amount of faith in me to make me captain without any expertise, without any experience rather than expertise, experience or captaining at any sort of level other than schools, to put his faith in me. And he was going in as a new international coach himself, to put this faith in me, and I captained for 4 years under his tutelage. So he certainly, and then I couldn't not mention Sir Ieuan McGeechan, who was only playing Ieuan McGeechan will only coach me, but a Lions legend and a fabulous ability to simplify things, and especially when you're on tour, and especially when you have to form a tight unit in the space of a fortnight, which were our Lions teams have to do. You simplify things, to gel. The Lions, for example, shouldn't work. It's an anathema. There's no way on a blank sheet of paper would you design the Lions as an entity. How four groups of teams and four groups of players can come together in a space of a fortnight and take on a test country in their own backyard, 8,000 miles away from home. I mean, it shouldn't work. But when it does, it's worth being there. It is special. And he had the ability to simplify things for us. And that's what's required. Less detail, more execution, better execution. That's what it's about at that level, especially with the Lions. So Sir Ieuan McGeechan would certainly be there.
Fantastic. So what are you actually up to now then in terms of what Ieuan Evans doing? I know you commentate very well, but in terms of post-rugby?
I've professional rugby only came in the back end of my career, and so I've carried on doing other things. In the business world, I've sat on a number of public bodies, things like the Tourist Board, Ryder Cup Board. I'm involved with a company in bioelectronics at the moment, Neurocore, treatment. It's all sorts of things, to be honest. I've also put my name forward for National Council member. My year as well. I've gone through one election. I'm about to go through another one. So, because it's important to give back. Rugby's given me a huge amount. It's given me a massive amount of fabulous experiences, great friends, and I want to give back. And we live in strange, abnormal times at the moment. Yeah. And it's going to be a significant challenge for us. But I also think it's a significant opportunity for us as a game to reconnect and ensure that we are the strong part of the community we always have been. And rugby clubs are central to that, Gareth.
Good. So, in terms of players you played with at Llanelli, in terms of, who would you say was the kind of, in your own side, the standout player?
I'm fortunate, people like immediately Jonathan Davis comes to mind, great mate of mine. We've known each other since we were tiny little kids, and neither of us got youth or schools caps. We had to fight our way in the hard way, and an outstanding player in both codes. But certainly, it was a pleasure and a privilege to play alongside Jeff. Stunning player to play alongside. He would be, he'd stand out there. But others, like Rob Jones and so on, outstanding scrum half and another really close friend of mine. So I'm quite fortunate with the players who played alongside. With the Lions, players like Martin Johnson, Finley Calder, I mentioned, Jeremy Guscott, really brilliant players. And now and again, you're in the you're not only in the games, but in training sessions as well. And you play alongside people, you're thinking, he's not bad, him. And then you have an opportunity to play alongside them as well. It's not a bad, day at the office when you play alongside mates who happen to be brilliant at what they do as well. Playing in front of 10, 20,000 people, up to 80,000 people. It's not a bad work environment.
Right, good. So then, obviously, in terms of the WRU. Are you willing to say about what you were looking at with the the WRU in terms of the council and how you see your role in that if you were successful?
It's an opportunity to. I think for me, it's about particularly post COVID now. It's reconnecting. We're 3.2 million people. We're 40,000 registered players, so 322 clubs. It's about utilizing and optimizing all our resource. It's all that intellect, all that knowledge. There's two things we cannot do without in the game of rugby union: players and volunteers. And that's where the resource is. We need to we can't afford to throw away our assets. We need to optimize all the resource we have, reconnect, re-engage. We also do things our way. We have many strong attributes as a people, as a culture, and as a history. Let's utilize that talent to the utmost. If COVID shows us anything, it'll work collectively and collaboratively. We help each other out, and that's how we do things. Let's be sure and clear and in our strategy moving forward, and let's communicate. Let's talk. We have an inability at the moment. We tend to get a little bit insular, but we can't afford to do that. Let's talk. Let's share out the challenges. Let's work. Let's help each other out. That's how we do things. And COVID showed us anything, how important that is, and how well we do it when we do it, when we do work together and help each other out.
Fantastic. Well, my next guest is in the back office, like you were. He's actually under his wife's name, but I've just lost him. So he is there. I don't want to repeat of last week with Joe Marler when he just disappeared. And what's just happened? Our next guest has just disappeared.
So, any more questions, Ed? You check me through more questions.
Well, I don't want to abuse you. I never this time, but if anybody's got any questions,
it's been a pleasure to be here.
It's amazing. I mean, I'll be honest with you. I think I've got your booking for sports dinner. That's come up in the side. So I'll be passing your details on to our rivals up the road. Clive Rowland is home village of Cwmtwrch. I don't know if it's upper or lower Cwmtwrch, but they've got a new clubhouse. So if anyone's got any questions, Ieuan is more than willing to answer them. But I can see in the background, if you can hear me, Alison Brooks. So I presume that's Zinzan Brooks. But we haven't had any other questions come in, so I'll try and bring in.
It's been a pleasure talking to you. And remember, clubs are critical in our development moving forward. We do not build from the roof down; we build from the ground up. I've never seen a builder or an architect do it from the roof down.
But I'd just like to say, on behalf of us, Organised Rugby Club, we're delighted to have you on. As I said, I didn't name my son after you for. It's probably to do with that try when you obviously skinned one of the Underwood brothers. But what a lovely man you are, Ieuan. As I said, we do appreciate you.
That's a pleasure.
And thank you so much for giving up your Saturday time.
And all the best. Take care, everybody.
Thank you very much. Right, our next guest.
No star.
Thank you. No star to you as well. Our next guest, if he's there, is Mr. Zinzan Brook. Are you there, Zinzan? Can we hear Mr. Zinzan?
I am.
Yeah, he's live there. There's a bit of sun. There's a bit of sun behind you, but I appreciate you coming in on your wife's Facebook. That's massive for us.
Fine.
We've had 3 guests come on. We are live on the club. So I'd just like to say, firstly, I would like to introduce Mr. Zinzan Brook. A few facts about Zinzan. He shares the same birthday as myself, Valentine's Day. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
Obviously, an All Black legend, a man that loved the drop goal, the only player to score a drop goal at Wembley, which was against Wales. Is that right?
That's correct. Wales, yeah.
That's good. So how are you, Zinzan? Before we start, obviously, how's things going with you during this lockdown and how's things up there? Is it up in Windsor you're living or are you not up there anymore?
Yeah, Windsor. Windsor. I've been in Windsor for about 8 to 10 years, and then we moved out about 4.5 years ago to a little place called Hollyport, which is 5 minutes from Windsor. So yeah, really enjoyable. But this whole coronavirus thing and the lockdown is all gathered. Well, it's gathered a lot of momentum. And what are we now? I think we're in the 21st. Well, we don't talk about weeks anymore. It's about months. I think we're in 4 months into lockdown, and a little bit frustrating for 6 kids, but they're doing the best they can. But it is what it is, and we try and move on, and each day approach it in the right way. So we just deal with the consequences and see if we can actually get through it. So so far so good.
Amazing. Well, yeah, I think it's the 22nd week we've done this. So, the club Q&As, we had 3 guests on tonight. So first was Xavier Rush, another All Black number 8. Ieuan Evans, and now obviously you're our last guest of this series. So we had Sean Fitzpatrick on last week, who spoke very highly of you. So it's fantastic to have you. So can you just let our viewers know, in terms of your rugby journey, obviously, how did it start? Was it like Sean Fitzpatrick, a youngster, and then worked your way through, or how did it start for you?
Yeah, well, look, I started. I grew up on a rather large farm, so practicing the skill sets of kicking a ball, passing a ball was in the backyard. Not everyone has 35 acres as a backyard, but I learned to skill sets, and then quickly sort of developed that through to my teenage, and then little did I know I was probably I was better than at kicking a ball and passing a ball, and then a particular coach sort of noticed me when I was about 17, 18 years of age, and wanted me into his side when I first moved to Auckland. So, which I joined a club called Marist as a 17-year-old, and that was my that was the start of my career, and then played under 21s and quickly moved into the senior side, and then I snuck into the well, I didn't sneak in. I got into the Auckland team in 1986, and then I was involved in the 1980 from 1987 onwards. And then the All Blacks in my first senior year when I was 20, 21, 22. I was in the first World Cup as a 22-year-old. So, and I didn't even play the trial. So I was the only one who didn't play the trial and got in. But it wasn't because of what I did. It was just because that I covered all 3 positions. So because in those days the World Cup you only had 26 players, so you had to double up. So I was lucky enough to get involved in the '87 World Cup, and then 10 years after I finished my career in '98.
Oh, fantastic!
So yeah,
that would have been the same World Cup that you obviously the first World Cup, and I know Sean Fitzpatrick said last week, he wasn't really first choice, and he came through, and he ended up playing in the final as well, didn't he? So that's a fantastic. So what was your first cap? Who was your first cap against, and what age was that?
My cap against '87, I was against Argentina. So Argentina. It was a Sunday game, so Michael Jones couldn't play, and then so I played open side, and my actual club mate John Kerwin had a little wee nice ball on the short side, and I was just lucky enough to be in the right spot, and he just gave an inside pass, and I scored a try on my debut at Wellington. So I was absolutely delighted. But yeah, so like Sean Fitzpatrick, you said. It was one of those sort of things. As lucky scenario, but I think he potentially could have actually taken the lead role as the number 1 hooker in that World Cup. But he was good enough to actually take Andy Dalton, who was the reserve. Actually, unfortunately, just pinged his hamstring, and Sean Fitzpatrick got the break, and they never changed. And Sean Fitzpatrick, we don't need to describe his career. It's fantastic, but it was just a lucky break. But he took it.
Yeah, and it's funny. There's a bit of a joke around the Welsh Valleys at the minute. Obviously, Sean came on the show last week, and then on Tuesday he's had a new role with the Scarlets as a board member. So you don't know what's going to happen to you next week, because you've come on the show this week, and you may end up with a role. We're looking for someone at Usher Nice in our rugby club, so you never know, right? What could happen? It's been called the Springboard Show, this one. So in terms of drop goals, you love a drop goal. How many drop goals did you manage to slot over during your career?
I attempted 4 and got all 4. So 3 in test matches and 1 in a club game.
So what about that one? What about the one in '95? Would you tell our viewers about that one in the World Cup?
Yeah, '95 was final against England, and Yeah, it was. Well, I have to mention. I have to mention my brother in that one there, because he always says that had I not actually kicked that ball before, you wouldn't have got that drop goal. So Robin, my brother, was actually the one. He was just outside the halfway line, and it was sort of open play. And Robin actually put a Gary Ieuan up, and dropped back into the 22, and then Will Carling actually picked it up, and he was looking to what his best move was to actually counter attack, or to kick it in touch. I know he was trying to kick it into touch. He'll tell you that oh well, look, I saw Zinzan was actually at fullback, so I kicked it down his throat because I knew he was not going to do anything with that. But I know he sliced it off his foot. And as the ball sort of rolled, I was about 55 meters, 56 meters away, and the ball rolled along the ground to me just before the halfway line. And as it bounced up, it bounced in between the posts, and I went, oh, okay. I've practiced this all my life with drop goals, and yeah, I know it was a semi-final of a World Cup against England, and a lot of people forget that actually in 1993, England actually beat us at Twickenham 15-9. So a lot of the guys that were actually in that side actually felt that pain at Twickenham in 1993 when we lost. So we wanted a little bit of revenge, and that was the opportunity for us to do it. But yeah, the drop goal, and then I lined it up, and it was about 48 meters, 47 meters away, and I struck it nicely off my inside of my right foot, and I actually had Mike Brewer, who was actually just inside me, saying, he said, I was shaping up, and he was calling out, no, Zinny, no, because Jonah was just to the left of me, and I said to Bruiser, you know, look, Mike Brewer, and I. Look, he's already scored 2 tries. I said, no, I'm not going to pass it to him. So, and then and then I did the drop goal. Thank goodness it actually went over. So, yeah, and it was, look, it was a great moment, and drop goal. Yeah, I know it's a little bit different than number 8, and I actually did my next one. My next one was a year later in '96. I'm not too sure whether you actually know, or the people there know. The All Blacks have never won a Test series in South African soil. So the All Blacks have been there 10 times. I think it was 9, and we were the 10th. We've never won a Test series, and we actually we beat South Africa 4 times that year, and we won the Test series. And it was actually the drop goal. I did a drop goal against South Africa in Loftus in Pretoria, we didn't need it. It out to 7 points. So yeah, that was my second one, and that was I find that one more memorable because it's involved in an All Black side that's never won in South African soil, and I was part of that team, so it was we were delighted.
Oh, so then that was good. Yeah, it's fantastic, these drop goals. And so in terms of Wales, obviously, how did you used to enjoy playing against Wales? I remember you coming to the Knoll playing Neath in I think it was 89.
Yes.
That was a bit of a brutal,
yep.
That was quite a brutal encounter. One of our viewers has just explained the famous number.
There was another sport we didn't have gloves on, though, did we?
No, yeah, I think it was just. I think you're up against a number 8 who's actually married to a girl from this area, Mark Jones. That would have been an interesting.
Jonesy,
yeah. So in terms of Wales,
he's never short of. He's never short of coming forward, though. Jonesy was he was a very physical player, and he was a quality player. And I grew up on. I loved Welsh rugby as a kid, so I loved all the watching the Six Nations back down under, and it was fantastic. And a lot of Welsh players, were involved, and they were a lot of my heroes. Gareth Edwards and Phil Bennett were my 2 heroes for me as a kid. So absolutely loved it. But yeah, it's good.
So good. So in terms of one other question, that the haka obviously is a famous symbol. What does it feel like when you're actually doing the haka, with your team?
Well, yeah, it's firstly it's a massive privilege being involved in an All Black side. Secondly, it's even a bigger privilege to only to be involved in it, but actually to lead it. So I loved every moment, and I think the way that the guys actually are doing the haka now, I think is absolutely fantastic. I think the guys have stepped it up a gear and it's a lot in sync, and but we used to have the one practice that we that on a Friday night, but it was it was brilliant. It's a big part of New Zealand culture, and it's part of my heritage as a Maori boy myself, a Maori man, and I've loved every moment, and I still love enjoying what the All Blacks do it, and I think and it's great that the people that are actually involved in the game. There's obviously teams have responded in different ways and different challenges of actually how they respond to it. So it's a great thing, because and I'm sure a lot of people will know this. That it's a war cry to ask just what you do and you feel, and you get your blood pumping, and before you go into battle, and it's a massive part of New Zealand culture, and I think it's fantastic.
Great. So what does it mean to somebody like yourself to obviously wear that that black jersey?
Sorry, I didn't hear that, but I didn't hear that.
Sorry, no problem. What does it mean to somebody, obviously, as a youngster growing up in New Zealand, then to finally, get that first cap on that jersey?
Yeah, look, it was one of those sort of things. It's a little boy's dream, and I grew up in a rural country. The school I went to, from where I came from, Aharoa was the school, and there was only about 31 kids, and 6 of them were Brooks, and thinking about playing for the All Blacks was like it was like climbing Everest as a kid, because it's just such a huge thing. But my mum and dad were my dad was the coach and mum was the manager, so I always made the team. So it was an absolute privilege. Just getting involved in the game. It was just what you do on a Sunday, schoolboy. And I remember I was talking about this the other day with my brother, who was just over here, and we were talking about how when we were kids, right in the middle of winter, because we used to play in bare feet till about the age of 12. And I look back at those years, because like that, none of them do that now. They all have boots from about 5 years of age. But I think I loved playing in bare feet as a kid. You can slide around and enjoy the whole moment. But rugby New Zealand and is so important. It's part of our culture. It's part of our DNA. And what the guys are doing now at the Aotearoa rugby is just absolutely phenomenal, and they've raised the crossbow, and certainly some of the games that they're doing now is at test level. So look, for a young man like myself, and I was lucky enough to get involved with the All Blacks with my younger brother, who played more test matches than myself, but it's but playing alongside your brother and a lot of teammates that and our mates for life. We've fortunately right now we're very sad. He's still around, but Andy Hayden, who was a great All Black and a good team man, and he was a massive player involved not only in Auckland rugby, New Zealand rugby, but he was one of the guys that sort of have implemented professional rugby. So he's fallen on hard times health wise, and we always look after each other and make sure that the well being of individuals vitally important. So I've loved the game, and I'm trying to give back. When I retired here in the UK, when I was finished with Coventry, I joined the local Windsor club and took my two boys through with Windsor Rugby Club, and then one of my boys is he's only 18. He's just left school, and he signed a 2-year contract with London Irish. So I've played a little part in what his skill sets, but it's it's nice seeing your boy coming through and his journey just beginning, and it's hopefully he'll carry on.
Oh, that's interesting because that was my father's club, Windsor, and I started out there as an 8-year-old. So I did know you played.
Oh, really?
I think if I look behind me, there is a Windsor, a 1960s. My father played in a very good Windsor side before there was the big sides, and a lot of Welsh guys went up to play for Windsor back in the day.
Oh, wow.
So I did know you. I did know you played there.
Yeah.
With a lot of guys that I know.
Yeah,
so we don't just.
Yeah, I actually played 2 years in Windsor, because I've never in my life actually in the same side as my youngest brother. So my youngest brother he played rugby, he just enjoyed it, but he wasn't. It wasn't his main point of his pathway to where he is now. And I said to him, I said, look, so when I came out of retirement with Coventry Rugby when I was there for 2 years, and then I came down to Windsor, and I said, oh, look, I'm going to play at 30. I was 37, 38 years of age, and I said, well, look, I'm going to play with Windsor for a couple of years. So because I've never played with him, so yeah, and I enjoyed playing. And for the 5 years that he was playing for Windsor, he'd never scored a try. And I said to him before, when I used to get on, I said, well, who are we playing? Blah, 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 blah. And I said, oh, look, I'll score a try today. And he said, well, and the chat sort of went on, brothers is what you do, sort of you Mickey take with each other. And I actually scored 2 tries in my first game for Windsor, so it was good.
Well, I left Windsor to go over the M4 to a place called Slough. They absolutely love Windsor, let's just be honest. So I played a bit over there.
Yeah.
So very interesting.
Played them.
So I bet that was a great game for you. But in terms of moving to England, then when did you come over? Was it Harlequins that you came over for?
Harlequins, 1998. I arrived here March the 8th, 1998. I came over to try and catch the tail end of the 1988 season and there was 8 to 10 games that and I wanted sort of to make an impact when I actually was starting of the new season in September of 1998. And then I was there for 2.5 years. I came over and watched them, and then unfortunately, which I didn't know, I probably wouldn't have jumped on, but I walked straight into a strike. The players were on strike, and they had a little issue with the coach, and the coach at the time was the guy who was the Lions coach was a guy called Andy Keast, and unfortunately, the players had an issue with how he was behaving with the kids. But look, it happened, and I had 2 years with 2 years with Harlequins. Look, I wouldn't say I totally enjoyed it because of that strike. It sort of caused a couple of issues because I ended up by being player coach, and I didn't want to. And I did say to the club, there was actually a guy he's a Welsh player, a guy called Hugh Morgan. Hugh Morgan was the CEO of the club, and who lovely guy from Wales, and he was our CEO, and he asked me to take on the coaching. I said to Hugh, look, I actually got no coaching experience. I said, look, I'm just a player. I just came here to play, and it was very difficult. Anyway, I accepted the role and took on, and it was unfortunate because it created a bit of a division because I wasn't just a player. I was actually a player and a coach, and you have to respectfully drop players if they don't perform, and it was so, and that sort of led to me about not totally enjoying my experience with Harlequins. So
right.
And I was there. Yeah, so I was there for 2 years, but I'd love to wind the clock back and see if I could actually do that because with my career from 1986 to 1997, and then you're in your last 2 years of your career, you didn't enjoy it, and that's not what I played it for. I firstly played rugby just for the enjoyment and getting involved in with players and individuals, and it was fantastic, but I did not enjoy that 2 years with Quinn.
Good. So, in terms of players you played against, one question's come in. Who would you say the toughest opponent you faced on a rugby union pitch would be?
Well, there's lots of them. A lot of the South African players, I tell you, who's a which is respectfully is a guy who's a pain in the backside is Brendan Venter and Ruben Kruger. Those two guys there, but Ruben Kruger was a guy that was an absolute he was a tremendous player. There's lots of guys that fill that role, but and the other guy who I've always rated as a player as well was a guy called Richard Hill. Was a quality player.
Yeah.
I enjoyed his company and played. He's one of the best. But Ruben Kruger and Richard Hill. Yeah.
Good. Yeah, Richard Hill, fantastic. In terms of All Blacks, then who would you say in All Blacks wise, would be the standard? I know Sean Fitzpatrick mentioned a few props and different things, but who would you say the ultimate All Black in your time would be, apart from yourself?
The players. I loved. I look at open side flankers. Open side flankers are a huge part of now. Hang on a second here, Lacey. Can you go and grab me? Can you get Mummy to grab me an umbrella, please?
Is it raining?
Sorry. Yeah. It's just starting to tickle down here, and I'm just sitting here, but it's fine at the moment. Yeah, it's not pouring. Sorry. So players in New Zealand. So players that I enjoyed. I loved playing with Josh Confeld. I've always wanted to.
Yeah.
And they talk about Richie McCaw as an absolute dynamo. Yeah, look, his career speaks for itself, and great player. But Richie McCaw is probably a guy that he never played the most amazing game, but he never had a bad game, and he was, and I totally respect him as a player, because I think it was 149, but Josh Confeld was an absolute tremendous player. Michael Jones was an exceptional player. The players that you'd like to think that you're actually as good as them, but you're not, because they have the gas and the wheels. But you guys like Jonah and Jeff Wilson and guys like Glenn Osborne and Christian Cullen, were absolutely tremendous. And then you got to talk about the guys like who before were like that. There were a guy, John Kerwin. John Kerwin was a fantastic player as well. So, it was. I played with a lot of great guys, and I was absolutely privileged to play against those guys. So, I enjoyed every game, regardless of whether you win or lose. That's not your intentions. You always want to win every single game, but it was. I totally enjoyed it, and but the guys from a loose forward perspective would be Josh Confeld, Michael Jones. Yeah, those are the two key guys that I thoroughly enjoyed playing with.
Great. I can see it's raining and you've got your umbrella. It's a bit surreal interviewing Zinzan Brook under her umbrella, but I won't keep you for much longer because I did say, I know time is precious and we've had three great guests.
Yeah. No problem.
So I'm a man of my word. So just a couple other questions have come in. What would you say the best country you toured and who would be the best tourist? Was one that's coming from one of our regular viewers, Julian Bynum.
Touring. I always enjoyed the UK. Loved coming up here, like the 89, the 93, and the 90, the 97, the 97. Just touring the Isles was fantastic. The South African experience was was a little bit sort of surreal because we're on basically it's quite different. In 1992 when we toured South Africa for I think it was about 3 or 4 games when we played the Box. But having guys with guns while you're going around in a bus and they're looking after you and all the rest of it, it's just like surreal. So it was quite different. But the whole going to the safaris and all the rest of it, and seeing all that was a thing for me as a youngster. But look, I enjoy. I just loved just experiencing different the different cultures, and UK was a big part of that and journey. So I enjoyed touring Wales, Scotland, Ireland. Ireland are a bunch of they're a bunch of crack ups. Those boys. But it's I enjoy. I loved it. I did enjoy every time I came here. On three tours, and all of them were brilliant. And Wales are definitely right up there. I thoroughly enjoyed that whole. And for me, with my dream, and I got my opportunity to play on the Great Park. So it was back in the old stadium, which that was Cardiff Arms Park was just brilliant. I loved it. And the first time I played it was actually, I think it was Sport Aid Sevens in '86. I think Sport Aid Sevens. Yeah, I think in '96. And I remember having to, I went down. I remember kissing the ground because that for me was one of the things I loved when the Welsh sing the anthem and they sing all the things before the match. It's just beautiful. So I loved it, and it was one of my dreams was actually to play on Cardiff Arms Park, and I was fortunate enough to do that.
Ah, that's amazing. So before you go, I know it's raining. I'd just like to say, what does the future hold for you then? Is there any return to rugby, or is it, building up your businesses? What's the future of Zinzan Brook?
Good question. There's a couple of things that are actually in the pipeline. I can't sort of disclose disclose into too much detail, but I would love to get involved in rugby. I'm actually just having a chat to a club down in Exeter. So it's a little club, but something's in the pipeline. So I'm thinking about getting involved in it. Well, I am going to get involved in it. So, but with this coronavirus things have slowed up because we were trying to get some momentum to come in and roll in to the new season. Every day's a different day when this whole coronavirus things, because it can change your focus of where you're aiming to. So we might have to wait and delay, but the talk is at the moment that it's probably going to be 2021 before it happens. But it's involved with rugby that I want to be part of.
That's a world exclusive. That's a world exclusive. I said to you at the start, didn't I? Sean Fitzpatrick came on last week. You're on this week. Yep. You're both. There'll be an announcement next week. So I take a lot of credit for what's going on in yours and his career. We call it the Springboard Show. So I'd just like to say, this is you're our last guest of the first series. We've had All Blacks on, we've had England players, Wales players, all sorts of different players. I'd just like to personally thank you for giving up your time. Thank your wife also for getting you logged on, and I'd just like to say good luck with the the new challenge in rugby from all the Ashton Lights Rugby Club. And when I'm up in Windsor, I will hold you, and we'll have I will buy you that beer I promised you. And hopefully, we'll find out where this new club is, and we'll be there to say. So, thank you very much for your time, and all the best, Zinzan.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Well, there we are. That was fun. Our last guest of series number 1. Absolutely brilliant. Obviously, Xavier Rush, Ieuan Evans, Zinzan Brook. I get to interview Zinzan under an umbrella. Absolutely brilliant. So we are going to crack on now with our final quiz of this series. I should give a bit of credit to tonight's sponsor, a brand new company in Ystradgunlais, Evans and Son Recovery. Just started out their recover vehicles 24 hours a day. They've sponsored us with 4 free tickets to watch the Scarlets v the Ospreys. Obviously, once the virus is over and we're allowed crowds back in, so we will honour the actual fact of that the game will be played and you can have tickets. It's been brilliant fun doing these interviews. I'll crack on with a quiz. Brilliant fun, as I said. I've been made redundant this week, so if anyone's got any jobs out there, I've got a few in the pipeline, but not as much as Zinzan Brook. So anyone who's got any jobs, hit me up with that because I need a job. These shows won't pay my bills, but it's been great fun. I've met some fantastic people along the way. Matthew Soroka deserves a big shout out. I've had about 50 messages a day off him to keep morale up. It's been brilliant fun meeting my heroes and people through rugby, but it's been really good to see the Astragon Lights badge been spread all over the world, helping out other clubs. There's been a lot going on, and obviously every single club that supported this, we obviously love you all. But quick questions, as I said, there's 10 quick questions. Answer up in the box on the right-hand side. They're rugby-based questions sponsored by Evans & Son. First question, where will the 2023 Rugby World Cup be held? Where will the 2023 Rugby World Cup be held? Where will the 2023 Rugby World Cup be held? Answer in the, obviously, the end there in the boxes, and I will pick random winners for 4 tickets to watch the Scarlets v the Ospreys. Taken, obviously sponsored by Evans & Son. If we can support them, a new business in Astragon Lights, that's all we've done this quiz is support local businesses. We've had ice cream, we've had Freedom Leisure, Chunky Sevens, Rice and Spice, Apparel 5, all been on. Absolutely fantastic. It's all about local people, local businesses. As you can tell, I'm on a high. You don't always get to interview Zinzan Brook under an umbrella. So fantastic. So the question is, where will the World Cup be held in 2023? Question number 2, in international rugby, who is the all-time point scorer? Who is the all-time point scorer in rugby, international rugby? Who is the all-time international rugby highest point scorer? That is question number 2. Who is the all-time highest point scorer? And as I said, it's 4 tickets, free tickets to watch the Scarlets v the Ospreys down in Parker Scarlets when we're allowed crowds back in, and we'll honour that prize. As I said, there's been some fantastic prizes, and on behalf of Astragon Lights Rugby Club, you know, it's not about me, it's about the rugby club. There's a lot of good things going on there. There's kids rugby, there's a ladies hub started, there's the first team, second team. So as I said, it's absolutely brilliant in terms of you know, what's going on. These earphones keep falling out. I think I've grown this lockdown. My t-shirt's definitely tighter. I've had a hair transplant offer from Xavier Rush. So I'm going to have another beer to celebrate. It's our last one. So if you've got a beer there, everybody, let's see this away and enjoy yourself. Question number 3. Who won the Women's Rugby World Cup in 2017? Who won the Women's Rugby World Cup in 2017? Who won the Women's Rugby World Cup in 2017? I will give you a clue because it's near the end of the Series 1. We are having a Christmas special. The guests are booked. The Christmas jumpers booked. The Christmas tree's ready. The party poppers. We're having a Christmas special with some big guests, bigger than what we've had. So look out for the Christmas special. Who won the 2017 Women's Rugby World Cup? I would be careful on this one. A lot of you are putting an answer down, but it's a different answer to I've got on my pad. So who won the Women's Rugby World Cup in 2017? Women's Rugby World Cup 2017. Question number 4. Which set piece, we've had this one before, which set piece is in rugby union but not in rugby league? Which set piece is in rugby union but not in rugby league? There's a few different answers coming in, as I said. You know, as I said, 4 tickets for the Scarlets Ospreys. I need to push these guys a lot. Obviously, the guys, Evans and Son, supported the rugby club this evening. Good luck with your new business. Again, another business that we're helping. We've had the Garrity's ice cream on, Rice and Spice, Apparel 5, Chunky Sevens, Freedom Leisure, Astragon Lights Sports Centre. Which set piece does not feature in rugby league, but it does in rugby union? Who is the current sponsor of the Six Nations? It's rugby tonight, all rugby. Who is the current sponsor of the Six Nations? So don't worry if you haven't got your answers in quick enough or you've missed any. Who is the current sponsor of the Six Nations? And a big shout out to all those. The caravan season started, and I know that there are a few in their caravans watching this. I've had pictures in from Cornwall, one out in France. A fair play to them. If they're out there in their caravans with a beer, drinking Rattler somewhere down in Cornwall, let's see it away, guys, because we've had a bad few months, and let's get this morale back up in the area. Who is the current Six Nations sponsor? In which year, question number 6, did the Five Nations become the Six Nations? In which year did the Five Nations become the Six Nations? So in which year did the Five Nations become the Six Nations? We've got 4 questions left. And as I said, if you're down in Cornwall, I've seen the people drinking the Rattler stuff. Get it away. I've just been offered a job moving 5,000 blocks next week. Am I available? Yeah, I'll be available. Now I've signed on. So just give me a bell and let me know. I may have to delegate it out. And because 5,000 blocks is a lot of blocks unless it's blocks of cheese. What year did the Six Nations, obviously was the Five Nations, what year did the Six Nations expand to become? Right. Who is Test Rugby's all-time leading try scorer? Who is Test Rugby's leading try scorer? I'm going to struggle to pronounce this name, but I will have a look. It looks a bit Welsh, the start of the name. Who is the Test Rugby's all-time try scorer? And let's be honest, tonight now I've got some good news. We have hit 300,000 viewers in 22 weeks. Absolutely remarkable what we've achieved. I can't get this thing to stay in. But as I said, not just my belly's growing, my ears are growing this lockdown. Who is Test Rugby's leading try scorer? So don't panic. There's no time restrictions. You know, we're an hour and 36 minutes into tonight's final show of Series 1. We got Christmas specials coming up, Halloween specials, a lot. But we felt it's fitting now with obviously people coming back to training in the next couple of weeks. The club now back open. We've got people in the club watching this through the windows. So welcome, Astro Gun Nice Club. Who is a top Test try scorer? I will give you a clue because I'm being nice. He isn't Welsh. So who is the top try scorer in Test Rugby? Who is Test Rugby's leading all-time try scorer? Obviously, people are using Google. I don't blame you, but that is a good question. Who is Test Rugby's as I said, big shout out to Gary Jones 60, big shout out to Pete Soroka, Matthew Soroka, all watching. The regulars, you know, Lynn Carter, Julian Bynon, Mallory Reese, been here, Bethan Jones since the start. Matthew Soroka, the man who loves a vest and bucket hat. Who is the Test Rugby's all-time? Question number 8, one of my favourite players to play the game. Who scored England's only try in the 2003 World Cup final? They've fallen out again. It's been the story of tonight. Who scored England's only try in the 2003 World Cup final? Big shout out to Greg Owen as well and his friends out in Dublin. Obviously tuned in every week. I can't go through you all, but you know, I've made some new friends through this bit of fun and also made existing friendships. I've got even stronger. That's for Mr. Matthew Soroka, the home of Mr. Morale. Who is the only try, England's only try in a 2000 World Cup final over Australia? I will give you a clue because I'm in a good mood. He used to play rugby league. Absolute great player. You are getting him now. Phenomenal player. As I said, question number 9. This is quite an easy one for you. We're going into women's rugby. Which team has won the most titles in the Six Nations Women's Championship? Which team has won the most titles in the Women's Six Nations Championship. Quite an easy one. They're a very successful side. I think they're one of the only professional sides around. Don't panic if you're still on the previous question. I haven't picked the winner on that. As I said, it's random. It's not a case of who's quickest. You can always copy the answer above. That's what I do. Who has won the most titles in the Six Nations? Right, our final question of the series. As I said, sponsored. I do give them a big shout out. Anthony and the guys. It's Evans and Son Transportation, based in Ashton. They've just started out. If you need any vehicles, transport, or anything, contact them. Contact the club for details. They've got a Facebook page, Instagram. We can give you details on. If you've got anything that needs moving, I see yesterday they moved the lawnmower, big lawnmower. They do cars. They do all sorts of things. I think they moved Kipper's green machine, probably from his house to the penny, as if it's reopened. Question number 10. The Calcutta Cup is contested. Nice, easy one to finish. The Calcutta Cup is contested between two countries. Which two countries contest the Calcutta Cup? That's the last question of our series. As I said, we've had some guests which have put us on the world stage as a club, put rugby on the world stage, put the area, the community on the world stage. It's been fantastic to have All Blacks. We've had people phoning in from Australia at 3 a.m. The Lee Burns, the Hibbards. I've got to give credit to Adam Jones, big Abercrave man. But in fairness, Adam has been absolutely brilliant in securing people. We've had Mr. Flatman on, Shanklin. So, as I said, what two countries contest the Calcutta Cup? So, what two countries contest the Calcutta Cup? So, I'm going to start going through the questions because it's been nearly an hour and 40 minutes of fun. The question number 1. Where will the 2023 Rugby World Cup be held? France. That is my good friend over in Cumgrac Rugby Club. I think she's having a party tonight for being redundant. Pamela, as I said, thank you for supporting us throughout every week, apart from one when you went to a party in your back garden. Pamela, it's been a pleasure to have you on board. And as I said, you did promise me a free bar. I know that may have changed now that we're both redundant, but I'm sure we can buy a bottle of 2020 and meet up over in KFC over that way, or McDonald's, and have it behind the back of the McDonald's shed there somewhere, so we can, and it won't cost us much. And I mean the 2020, nothing else, right? Question number 2. In international rugby, who was the all-time point scorer? It's Dan Carter. That is one of our previous winners, Danielle Owen. So we've got different obviously winners. Who won the Women's Rugby World Cup in 2017? That was New Zealand, Mallory Rees. So well done, Mallory. What set piece is used in rugby union but does not feature in rugby league? A line out. That was one of our coaches of our new under-11 side, Ryan Perrott, a guy that played for the club in a very good front row with Mr. Martin Jones and Chris Thomas. A very good front row that was, and all went on to play at a higher level. I think he could be away at the moment, but I'm not sure. But wherever you are, Mr. Boris, there's a song, Boris, see it off. So get it down here, Mr. Boris. Question number 5. The current title sponsor of the Six Nations is Guinness. Quite nicely, that was Mr. Greg Owen, who's based out in Dublin. I enjoyed my time out with Greg in Dublin. So Greg Owen. 2000, the year 2000 was the year that the 5 nations became the 6 nations. That's a gentleman, I don't know you, but you've been here every week, David Davis. Test Rugby's all-time leading try scorer. There was a few different answers there. I've got a guy which is similar to David Love, Dai Suk Otota. So the winner there is Linwin Jones. As I said, I don't know you, Linwin, but you're winning that one. Question number 8. Who scored the only try in the 2000 World Cup in Australia? Jason Robinson, also known as Billy Whiz. Robert Smith. So question number 9. Who won the most titles in those 6 nations? Derek Conway. Down to our penultimate question, the last one of the quiz, the series number 1, sponsored by Evans and Son. What fun it's been. The Calcutta Cup is contested by 2 countries, England and Scotland. Let me just go through for the 4 tickets to watch the Scarlets. Linwin Jones. So Linwin, you are the winner. Can you please send the club a Facebook message? And we will obviously arrange for the 4 tickets. That kind of brings us to the end. I'd like to say on behalf of, as I said, Ashton Ice Rugby Club, 22 weeks of fun, 300,000 viewers in total. We've met some new people. The club has got a lot going on. As I said, it's now back open. We've got fantastic people working behind the scenes. There's new players, there's old players, there's a junior set, minis, there's girls, there's Tiger Blues. As I said, let's get involved. We want to create a big blue wall with our bucket hats and vests and sliders. And it's all about the rugby starting back in 2 weeks, and we can't wait. So you won't have to put my mug on the Facebook again on a Saturday. But next time you see me, I may have a new hairstyle, because obviously our first guest, Xavier Rush, has offered me that. I don't know if it was a freebie or not, but I'll take anything I can get now. And as I said, if anybody's got any jobs out there, is my final thing. I'm looking for a job. I want Pamela Nation. We're both looking for jobs. And well done to our winner tonight, Linwin Jones. And absolute fun that we've had over the last 22 weeks. And as I said, if you see me in the club or any club, all I'm asking is that you buy me a drink just to say thanks. And if you see me by the fish and chip shop, can you stop me going in there? Because I'm signed up for Slimming World as of next week. Much needed, because this NHS t-shirt I've worn for the last 22 weeks has definitely got tighter. My earphones won't even go in my ears. And as I said, on behalf of Ashton Ice Rugby Club, Gareth Thomas is checking out for the end of series number 1. It's been absolutely brilliant. Good night, and have a fantastic rest of your Saturday night. That is the end of series number 1. Good night, everybody out there. We're just about to clock off.